Well, if turning off your Blackberry during your wedding ceremony gives you a nervous twitch, you're probably an addict. Boy, are you in trouble. And if a great Saturday night is playing internet poker for 18 hours with people in the Philippines and Finland, you're probably an addict. And those are just two of the high-tech pitfalls in modern life. Our tech expert, Hirsh, joins us now with more on this. So if we look at the Blackberry, we all know the joke crackberry is the reference. Why is it Blackberries are so darned addictive?
Well, really, it's a case of instant gratification. Blackberry, sort of their claim to fame was instant email. The second someone sends an email, almost literally it appears on your Blackberry. And so people sort of get used to the fact that wherever they are, instantly people will be in touch with them, and more importantly, they can then send emails back. And that instant gratification almost engenders a dependence. It gets people so used to having that when they lose it, let's say if they drop the phone and break it or they forget it at home, they go into withdrawal the same way they would in a typical addiction.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I think anecdotally we've all seen people in restaurants, going to kids' baseball games, everywhere, and they're basically intensely hovering over their Blackberry. And it now sounds like there is a bit of scientific evidence that says, yes, in fact, this can be considered an addiction. Speaking of which, of course, you're upping the ante because you have something that you think betters the Blackberry.
Well, I've actually just got a new phone, which is a Nokia.
The toy. Okay.
And the reason I got it is the keyboard is a lot larger. I was sort of troubled with always using my thumbs.
Right.
At least this way I can use my full fingers. But similar to the Blackberry, it keeps me in touch all the time. And this is also a Wi-Fi phone, so even if there's no cell phone service, I can get my email, I can go on the web, and it is an addiction. I mean, I kid myself by saying it's related to my work, but my wife will be having a conversation with me, and she'll notice my attention slipping, and she'll almost have to snap her fingers to get me to focus back on her rather than on
So you are a self-confessed addict. You admit that, yeah.
I am very much so.
Well, what is it about these technology and the toys that seem to cater to addictions? And we're not, I mean, workaholism, you can see, for people love the toys because it really does feed their workaholism. But there are other addictions as well that are stoked by technology.
Well, I think it has to do with the fact that technology does stimulate our brain. It does get things like adrenaline. It does get our emotions really running. And, you know, the internet obviously is a bastion of addictions. And while people may have other addictions, we talked about gambling in the intro, that, you know, it used to be if they were at a casino, someone would see them and say, you know, you really should go home. But if you're gambling in your home, there's no one to say, hey, you should stop. And similar, kids playing video games. There's a lot of really violent video games that are adrenaline rushes. And kids get addicted to that adrenaline. In the real world, they can't take a gun and go out and shoot people. But on the internet, you can play such violent games 24/7. And it, again, engenders a type of emotional dependence that people can't live without it.
So I suspect we're going to hear a lot of this debate played out in courtrooms if, in fact, lawsuits are filed over, you know, Blackberries being or employers who supply Blackberries responsible for addiction. But can you say that the internet and technology is an enabler? In other words, it feeds your addiction, but it's not responsible for your addiction.
Well, I think that will be an interesting argument that the courts will hear. And part of that is, you know, people have yet to think of the internet as something to have self-control over. So while the internet may be something that is neutral, as you mentioned, there are other addictions that are facilitated by it. But the internet itself is an addiction. Certainly I know people who could not go a day without getting on the internet and talking with their internet friends. So it'll be interesting how this pans out in the next few years as to whether there is liability in terms of getting people to use the internet.
For sure, very interesting. We'll keep watching. Jesse, thanks for this.
Thank you very much.